And the next person is going to be Vikki Stone from Palms and Associates. There's your forward, and then there's your laser beam.
I won't need that.
Are you sure? Let me just grab the master list. Okay, thank you for being ready too. I appreciate it.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Good morning. So last year, I'm in my office, I get a call from this guy who's absolutely frantic, needs insurance for an event that he's going to have in a couple of weeks. It was an event to deliver tacos for Taco Bell, a commercial drone called Taco Copter. And there were going to be several thousand people there, and could you do it? My attorney said, I'm looking to you, everyone else I've called is not returning my calls. So we got it done. And 2 days before the event, the FAA said, you can't do it. So fast forward to today. Okay. So now everyone's in the game, at least they're starting to get in the game. And fortunately, AIG just rolled out their new program for UAVs. And I brought with me the application so I could share with you exactly what they're going to be looking for when they're underwriting your account. But I want to just identify for you the main things that you want to look at, because it's not just liability coverage for your UAV, but in your business it's going to be workers' comp, it's going to be directors and officers liability if you're going to be bringing in outside investors. It's going to be employment practices liability, so there's going to be a multitude of coverages that you're going to be concerned about as you grow your business. For the purposes of moving forward, though, I will just focus on what they're going to look for in terms of underwriting UAV coverage. The most important thing the underwriters are going to care about is your degree of perceived control of the risk. The highest control for an underwriter is the pilot's experience, or the unmanned pilot's experience. Some of the carriers I've put up for you: Allianz, AIG, Global Aerospace. There's other carriers: CV Star, Phoenix Aviation. So the brokers that you're going to be looking to should have a niche in this area. They should be completely focused on this, not winging it. They should have really strong carrier relationships, because that will also impact how they're going to deliver coverage to you. Here are some of the key questions that they're going to be asking of you. But what I really want to do now is share with you this, some of the questions that literally just came out this week. So in addition to the obvious, who you are, what your experience is, they're going to want to know who the unmanned pilots are. They're going to want to know how you're maintaining your aircraft. They're going to want to know what kind of liability limits you're going to need. That may be decided upon by yourself or your client or customer. They're going to want to know what the value is of the hull, how much coverage you want. Do you want it while it's covered on the ground and in flight, or just on the ground, not in motion? They're going to want to know the make, model, registration, serial number. Is it a fixed wing, rotor ring, balloon, glider? How does it fly? Manually flown, semi-autonomous? Is it traditional takeoff, hand, rail, type of recovery, traditional landing, net line capture? What's the max gross takeoff weight, wingspan, rotor diameter, maximum operating altitude? Are there redundancies built in for the aircraft's propulsion system? What's the purpose? Is it going to be used for police, photography, video, thermal imagery, fire, wildlife observation, employee training, pipeline, search and rescue, construction engineering, surveillance, crop management, real estate sales? I'm just naming a few that are on here, but they're pretty hip to how it's going to be used, and they want to know. Is the address located on or adjacent to an airport? Describe the security measures and fire protection in place at the location where the aircraft is stored. Who employs the pilot? Estimated number of hours the aircraft to be insured is or flying in the coming months, 12 months. Does the applicant have a hangar, store, service, repair, or crew other aircraft? Operating environment characteristics. urban, industrial, overwater, night operations. Does any pre- and/or in-flight communication with air traffic control take place for a typical mission flight? Maximum anticipated altitude. I'm just scanning through some of these things. Most carriers are going to want to know this information from you, so when you get the application, don't sigh. The more information you give them, the better you're going to get in terms of coverage and pricing. Be as transparent as you can. We've heard so much today about what is approved, what isn't approved, what's legal, what's not legal. You know, everyone's kind of doing their own thing, but when it comes to insurance, if you give an insurance company a reason not to pay your claim, I guarantee you they will run with it. So tell them as much as you can. The next part of the submission from AIG in their program, they have a full section on the operator. So to give you an example, they want to know current certificates and ratings, student, private, operator, airline, rotorcraft. They want to know what kind of planes they've flown, if they have. Medical certificate information. Do you hold a valid medical certificate? They want to know the number of hours you've flown any kind of UAV, depending on the weight, 0 to 20 pounds, 21 to 55 pounds, and above. They want to know what you've done in the last 90 days, the last 12 months. Was it a jet, turboprop, helicopter, fixed wing, glider, balloon? And then they want to know all about their history. Have you ever had an aircraft claim been cited, a certificate been suspended or revoked? And so there's a tremendous amount of detail they're going to want to know on your unmanned pilot. The last thing I want to tell you is when you're looking for coverage, don't just be focused on price. Coverage is going to have a huge impact on whether or not your claim is paid. And I'll give you an example of some of the coverages that AIG is coming out on their form. And by the way, as a broker, I represent a number of companies, but AIG is one of the first to roll out a whole package where they're including liability and physical damage on the hull. But here is an example. Policy language is drafted specifically to respond to the exposures of unmanned aircraft. Coverage encompasses operators and specifies other non-pilot on-ground crew members among the insureds. There is no exclusion for loss arising from electronic malfunctions and failure of electronic components, accessories, power equipment. Such an exclusion is standard on manned aircraft policies. Optional coverage for hijacking or any unlawful seizure or wrongful exercise of control by means of spoofing. So coverage is flexible. Your broker can put together and tailor whatever it is that you're looking for. But I strongly caution you that when you're working with your broker, let me go to my last slide. When you're working with your broker, tell them, I want to see the feedback the carriers provided. Who quoted, who declined, and of the carriers that quoted, have them do a comparison of the different coverages that they're providing along with the premium. And that's going to give you a really good sense of what the market's doing, what coverages are important to you, and off you go. That's it. I'm Vikki Stone with Palms & Associates.
Questions for Vikki? The microphone, sir.
Thank you, Patrick. Good morning. My name is Felix Odrak from Mexico, and I was wondering if these insurance policies can be outside of the U.S.
I'm actually working on one right now in South America. Okay. Absolutely. In fact, most of the coverage that we're working on as an agency is outside of the country because that's where the action is, so absolutely. And AIG is an example, although we're not using AIG in this particular case. Most of the carriers are international, so not an issue.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Vikki, what are the minimum premiums, if any?
I've seen them as low as $1,200. They could probably come in even lower than that. A lot of the carriers are using non-admitted paper, so there's some taxes and fees added to that. Sometimes the agency will add a fee. We do. Sometimes it just depends on the account. But the minimum premiums are pretty small.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Brad Huber. Can you speak a little bit more about what happens if a client has a policy and something happens, they put in a claim, and the FAA says that wasn't a legal operation?
That was really gray yesterday. In fact, I saw yesterday, look for a policy that doesn't have an FAA exclusion. I'm like, what? Carriers are not going to want to insure an illegal act. However, that's why I say be as transparent as you can. So when you go to your broker, you tell them this is exactly what I'm doing. You complete the application as honestly as you can. You submit it to the carrier. If they're electing to bind the coverage based on what it is that you're telling them you're going to do, my inclination is to say that coverage is going to be afforded.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Vicki. Mark Osman. On manned aircraft, there's typically something called a named pilot, where only certain pilots can fly that aircraft that's insured. Is that same thing applied to unmanned aircraft as well?
They're absolutely underwriting the unmanned pilot. Absolutely. So if they're going to underwrite based on who they think is going to be operating that unmanned system, and then there's a loss with a different unmanned pilot, you might have an issue. So transparency is really important. So if you complete the application, coverage is bound, and then you're going to have some turnover, you're going to have somebody else that's going to be operating, call the broker, provide them the information, and then don't worry about it. Again, you don't want to do anything that's going to put you in a position of, you know, I've just jeopardized the coverage because now I've not accurately represented my exposure to the carrier.
Okay, thanks. And second question. I just forgot the second question. I'll grab you at lunch and talk to you then.
Hi, Jesse Hauk. Are the insurance carriers offering individual insurance for pilots, kind of like the recreational pilots of manned aircraft?
Like for hobbyists?
Well, if I'm an individual pilot and I'm going to fly or rent airplanes from multiple different sources, I can get insurance as an individual that covers me, you know, regardless of what aircraft I'm flying. Is similar insurance available for a drone pilot?
That's a good question. We have not been approached for that yet. We've been approached for the actual unit, but I would be surprised if that's not available or in the future will be. You know, they're just dipping their toe into it now, and in terms of putting a comprehensive form together. But I certainly would explore it.
Is anyone covering strict liability for manufacturers?
We're looking to write liability coverage for manufacturers, so absolutely. Yeah.
That was good.
Thank you.